When I was a university student, I studied the Western logic, and I believed in it. I followed the ideas of it. I believe that the world and things in the world either are or they are not. That there is either A or not A. But now I follow the Eastern logic and the consequences of it, and I believe that there is a limitless amount of options. For example, 1% A and 99% not A, 2% A and 98% not A, 3% A and 97% not A, and so on. A limitless amount of options. I believe that the Western logic, which sees the world as black or white, doesn't see the shades of gray. Or, to make a better comparison, it's like an outdated black and white TV and not a modern color TV. For example, we can say a person is a man or a woman. But actually we know that there are also other options. There are hermaphrodites, and those are of course just physical abnormalities. But there are also emotional different states. We know that gay people feel like they are women in a man's body. We know that people sometimes have no sexual affiliation. They feel like they're not even human at all sometimes. So emotionally there can be many states of being a man, and of course, or a woman. And of course, one can be a very macho guy and feel very much, identify himself with the male species, with the male gender, and feel that he is a guy as opposed to a woman, and try to, uphold some certain ideals about it, being tough, being not crying, acting like, I know it all, etc., etc. So there are various degrees of being a man. Are you a man? Sure, but what kind of a man I am, I don't know. So there are many, even though we say a man, but because a man has many meanings, many options, therefore this definition is unclear, and therefore the idea of yes or no, man or not a man, is just bogus to me. Western logic has a tendency to give labels to things. Because of logic, we say this belongs to this group or that group. So labels are false in my opinion. If you take any label, a Christian, for example, is a Christian the same as another Christian? Of course not. All Christians are different. They have different degree of belief, different degree of following the right path of life. You can go to church but sin every day, and then go to church on Sunday and ask for forgiveness but keep sinning. And another person who is a good Samaritan but not Christian, he or she may uphold all the Christian values and yet and live accordingly, and yet not go to church at all, and not call himself or herself a Christian. So there are many such examples. You can be a good policeman. You can be a policeman to a greater degree than another policeman who is just a policeman by name. A man who goes to work, puts on the uniform, is not necessarily doing any good for the society, can't be called a real policeman. But a real policeman can catch thieves or bad guys even off duty, right? So the policeman, it's a job, but at the same time, how much you apply yourself to this job makes you a real policeman or not a real policeman. And of course the degrees can be different, so how real you are or how unreal you are, it's very flexible and very undefinable. Therefore, I believe that the logic which says, Western logic, which says yes or no, is just not adequate to the scenarios in life, in real life. So far, we've been looking at a proposition, either A or not A. But let's look at another proposition, logical proposition, or a couple more. One of them, if A is bigger than B and B is bigger than C, then A must be necessarily bigger than C. Is this a correct proposition? Let's use another quality. Rather than size, let's talk about strength. If A is stronger than B and B is stronger than C, then A should be stronger than C. If you ask any martial artist, they will tell you that this is not true. Of course, strength can be measured in the ability to lift something or in the ability to fight with another person. Stronger meaning able to fight better. and so can win with another competitor. So if A wins with B and B wins with C, doesn't mean that A will win with C. There would be no Olympic Games at all. We know that one game, one loss is not enough, and you may actually win the whole thing after you've lost one fight. You still may win the gold medal. So also it depends, the quality, the ability to fight depends on the day, it depends on the luck that you experience at the moment, depends on if you have a headache or not, etc. Let's look at a very, very simple proposition, the simplest proposition of all logical propositions, a tautology. A is A. That's a tautology. So whatever is, it is that way. For example, Edward. Edward is Edward. Really? Is Edward the same now as Edward was 20 years ago? I don't think so. Edward looked differently. Edward's body was different. Edward's mind was certainly different. Edward's feelings were different. What was the same? Nothing. Experiences that Edward had had are different now than then. So obviously there is nothing that is the same in anything that we see in our world. There is nothing that stays the same. All things flow and change. Therefore, A is not true in the real world. And Albert Einstein had very good knowledge of that, and he actually said that mathematics and logic are truthful only as far as they apply to theory, but not to practice. Another basic proposition of the Western logic is A is not A. So it means that something, for example, the sun is not the sun, things that are outside of the sun. For example, the moon, but of course also the planets and the stars, etc., everything else. So the sun is not everything else. But actually, I believe that the mystical teachings, and of course I am a follower of the mystical teachings say otherwise. The sun and the moon and the stars and everything else is all the same. It's all one energy. It's all interconnected. And so therefore the sun is also not the sun. The sun is the moon and the stars and the planets and the people and so on. So that's why the basic proposition of the Western logic seems to be false when you apply it to the mystical teachings, and therefore to the way that we should understand the world in the near future. When we use any language, we of course apply the rules of logic in that language. And so, for example, when we say, I am probably planning to go to a party tomorrow, then other people will laugh at it, because you are either planning to go to a party tomorrow or you are not planning. How can you be probably planning? Planning means thinking about it and making a schedule and making a plan. And how can you be not sure if you are making a schedule, making a plan? Are you not sure what you are thinking? Well, actually, it is possible to be not sure what one is thinking. You can be thinking something, but a little bit thinking about other things. You can also be thinking to a certain degree, but not deeply, not as deeply as you think usually about something. So, for example, if I compare my own planning of tomorrow's event to other planning, so other planning, I envision my time of going, my clothes I will wear, and the present I will bring. But tomorrow's event, I don't envision those things. So I'm planning to probably go there, and I am probably planning to go there. It might be correct. I think that the Western logic, although it's understandable why we would want to have this kind of logic applied in the language, so that we can communicate and be understandable, but at the same time I think it falsifies the reality, because it tells us that the reality is clear and clear-cut this way or that way, but in fact the reality is very unclear and to a different degree. In the Western culture, we have this dichotomy that comes from the Western logic, from the way in which we construct our language, and from the way in which we think and judge things. And the dichotomy that is present in the Western culture is between good and evil. In the moral aspect, in the moral realm, the dichotomy is between good and evil. And of course, because we have this dichotomy, so we have classical movies about good and evil. For example, Westerns. In the Westerns, we have the good guy who kills the bad guys. But is killing really good? Not really. And does the bad guy have only bad character? Does he have only bad qualities? Not really. Does the good guy have only good qualities? Not really. There are no bad guys and good guys in the world. There are just all kinds of people in the world who are a little bit shady, a little bit mixed, a little bit good, a little bit bad. And judging them, you know, this guy is good and this guy is bad, this guy should be shot and this guy should be praised and given a sheriff's star, is of course nonsense. And it is also nonsensical to talk about the afterlife in the same sense as only good or only bad on the basis of what you did. So in the Western culture we have the concept of heaven and hell. Again, a dichotomy of reward or punishment. This dichotomy is not present in the, for example, idea of reincarnation. The Indian idea of reincarnation says that you will be reborn, you will of course suffer for your sins, but you will still experience life because you are a subject of life and you are precious, and even though you are full of ignorance, you don't know what you are doing, and so you are not really fully responsible for your mistakes. But in the Western tradition we have this severe punishment for mistakes that you are really not responsible for because you have no idea what you are doing. You are like a child, you know, and just committing some crime that you don't even know about. And then you are going to be sent to hell for eternity. Of course, many people don't subscribe to this idea anymore. They grow up beyond that lore that is adequate for little children. But some people still believe in that. And this is because it's rooted in our Western tradition, in the Western logic.